So I worked in the field for about 14 years as a case manager, doing various jobs, including working at a maximum security prison for women, being a job coach / case manager for refugees who are in the TANF program. I also served adults with severe mental illness, and most recently I was a case manager for a rapid housing program here in Charlottesville, Virginia for about 7 years. So a lot of times when I had a client who was an older adult, they would have family get involved, unfortunately, sometimes in a negative way. So they would have adult children who wouldn't leave the nest, if you will, right? So they were old enough to live on their own. For whatever reason, they did not, because their parent was willing to take care of them. Sometimes it was out of guilt because maybe they had to put their kids in foster care for a temporary time if they were trying to overcome a financial situation where they couldn't take care of their kids when they were younger. So they feel guilty for not being there. And so the kids kind of take advantage of that. Or there are other situations. Maybe the older adult is disabled themselves and couldn't afford to live on their own. So oftentimes we would have to find housing for everyone in the house, and that could be challenging because sometimes the older adults could pass the application process, but their kids could not, maybe because of a criminal background or some kind of credit issue. So it was really challenging to find housing when we had to house everyone in the household versus just being able to house my client. It would have been a lot faster. And so having those tough conversations of, hey, and this would usually be for the older adult clients I had who had adult kids who could afford to live on their own. Have you considered maybe having your kids find a separate place? We have other programs that maybe we can help them get in, but really, honestly, it's going to take way longer to get you in because of their barriers than if we just house you by yourself, because we could get you in like within 2 weeks versus 6 months or whatever. So I would just paint that realistic portrait, and then that really motivated them to have their kids find an alternative means of getting housed. But also there's good examples too. I had older adult clients who had siblings or who had adult children who were very concerned about them, couldn't take them in themselves because unfortunately they were also maybe in subsidized housing, and so they didn't want to risk their housing, but would, help them with trying to look at houses and other things online, especially if they were tech savvy. So they were very supportive. They just unfortunately couldn't help them financially because of their own situation. So I saw both ends of the spectrum. So my older adult clients, especially when it came to a tough decision of figuring out whether or not they should go to like assisted living or a nursing home, seeing that their inability to do any like daily activities of functioning, such as walking or even being able to prepare food, things like that, were getting really challenging for them. And so sometimes the relatives in their lives or friends, I think, got concerned when they heard, oh, you're going to put my family member, my loved one, into a facility. And so I would meet with them and my client, and we would kind of talk out what their concerns were. And I would kind of say, well, hey, this is really this because of the safety and well-being of your loved one. It's not about punishing them or anything like that. It's really our concern is they can't live independently anymore. And so there are unfortunately a lot of options, especially if you're low income, to be able to meet those needs. And so after those conversations, I think it made them feel better about the situation. And then ultimately I'd remind them it was the client's decision. So if my client said, yes, I want to do that, then I would respect that. Now, if they didn't want to, I wouldn't push it. But sometimes, unfortunately, Adult Protective Services would have to take over if they really thought that my client was in danger of not being able to function on their own. So just conversations and inviting them to the table so they could have their voices heard really helped in those situations.